One of the most common questions I see on builds is whether you should run a crit rate or crit damage echo or an elemental damage bonus versus 1 attack and 1 elemental damage bonus. To answer this question for any build you have, there is a 4-step plan I'm going to share in this video. For starters, we need to talk about the damage type of characters. For your DPSs, which are the main characters you are building your crit rates on, there are currently 2 distinct damage types. There are your nuke characters like Changli, Jinxi, and Shangliao. In other words, the characters that have low hit rates and high multipliers for the majority of their kit. The second type are damage over time characters that deal a high amount of hits in a short time from 1 attack on field. For example, Jian, Janshin, and most recently, Camellya. And this is not the same as your sub DPSs, which is why I mentioned them as on-field damage dealers. Alright, the 4-step plan. Now this isn't how I calculate the values for the build guides, but it's from all those calculations that I was able to discover this plan. And this is very precise and mostly accurate. I'm going to use Camellya as an example because this is very easy to apply to damage over time characters. Camellya's Blazing Waltz attack, so the spinning attack when she has red hair, has 19 instances of damage. This means during that entire attack, she will deal 19 instances of damage to a single enemy. And let's say this Camellya has 250 crit damage and 90% crit rate. One hit from this Blazing Waltz deals 5000 crit damage, so if each hit of this attack is critical, that's 95,000 damage in total from this one attack. However, the chance of Camellya hitting 95,000 is not 90%, it is actually 13.5%. This is because each one of those hits from her one attack have a 90% chance of critting, so it's 90% to the power of 19. Now let's take the same non-crit damage of 2000, but instead Camellya has 294 crit damage and 68% crit rate. This is due to changing from a crit rate echo to a crit damage echo. So if Camellya hits a crit hit, that is 5880 crit damage per hit or 111,720 maximum damage. The chance of Camellya actually dealing that damage is 68 to the power of 19, which is a 6.5% chance of actually dealing this damage. Now you do this for each combination of Camellya's attacks, which is very long and can be simplified, but I use this to explain the principle of probability. To make this entire process simple for any build, this is what you do. Take your maximum damage from that attack, so 95,000 for Camellya with a crit rate echo. Now multiply it by her crit rate, which is 90, and this will give us 85,500. Save this number and take her minimum damage, which is 38,000, and multiply it by 100% minus her crit rate, which is 10% in this case, also called her non-crit rate, and we get 3,800. Now add the crit average and non-crit average and you get 89,300. So on average, this Camellya will deal 89,300 from this attack. Doing the same for her other build, so take the maximum damage multiplied by her crit rate and then her minimum damage and multiplying it by her non-crit rate. Camellya on average would deal 88,129 damage. So which build is better? Her crit rate build. So just to show you how easy this is to do in game, here I have my Camellya with a crit damage echo. Now I would recommend doing your full rotation, but to keep this demonstration free of visual clutter, I'm using her by herself. For this attack, we get a critical hit of 2,541 and a non-crit hit of 1,005. This means the attack has a maximum possible damage of 48,279 and a minimum damage of 19,095. Now we multiply the max damage by the crit rate and the minimum damage by the non-crit rate, add these two together and we get 39,815. Now we compare this to Camellya using a crit rate echo, so she's at 90% crit rate and 208.6 crit damage. Doing the same process, we see she deals 2,056 crit damage and 985 non-crit damage, which is a maximum of 39,064 and minimum of 18,715. Multiplying these two numbers by their respective rates and then adding them, we get 37,029. So from this, I know my current current build, the crit damage echo is the better option. To present this in a simple 4-step plan, step 1, identify the significant attack. Choose one attack that deals the most significant portion of your character's attack, an example being Jian's ult that deals 8 hits at 65% from his first lance attack. You can also do this for more than one attack, for example Chun-Li's forte and her liberation, but you apply this 4-step plan to each attack individually and then add the answers. Step 2. Note down the crit rate and crit damage at the time your attack is cast. Step 3. Get the maximum damage and minimum damage and multiply them by your crit rate and non-crit rate. And finally, step 4. Choose the highest overall damage. And this is a very precise and mostly accurate way to choose what build is better. That is all for this 4-step plan. I will see you in the next video.